Hey everyone! Have you ever heard of a book called the Book of Enoch? What about the Dead Sea Scrolls? If you've heard of that, then chances are you might have heard of this book, because it was actually found in the caves with those infamous scrolls. But aside from being a part of such an important archaeological discovery, as we begin, I want to point out that there are several books named Enoch, so we need to be a little careful. For starters, there's the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, which is one of the 35 books of the Ethiopian canon of the Old Testament. This version of Enoch contains material not found in the other versions, and was likely compiled around the year 1000 CE. So although this version of Enoch was written down long before modern times, it was not published until almost 1,000 years after it was written. So, for all intents and purposes, it's fair to say that this version of Enoch was published in modern times. So we can pretty much rule this one out when talking about which Enoch was banned. Another book named Enoch exists within the corpus of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This version is called the Slavonic Book of Enoch, and it differs from the other versions, because guess what? So that rules that one out as well. And then we get to the Book of Enoch, that most people are referring to when they talk about the banned Book of Enoch. The one that was found in the caves with the Dead Sea Scrolls. His version of Enoch is different from the other two, because it was written in the ancient Hebrew language, just like the Old Testament, and its composition dates back to the last 3 centuries BC. So that means that this version of Enoch would have been contemporary to the Old Testament books of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Malachi, which were written between the years 450 and 400 BCE. Enoch also contains some of the most fantastical and wild material, including angels falling in love with human women and having children with them. These giants would then go on to interbreed with other humans, which resulted in the Nephilim. This version of Enoch also contains the astronomical text called the Star Book 8, which details the movements of the stars and constellations, as well as the longest surviving apocalyptic vision in all of Jewish literature. So now that we know which Book of Enoch we're talking about, why was it banned? Well, it wasn't always banned, at least not officially. The first time we see any kind of official condemnation of Enoch, who wrote this in his work against heresies. The canonical scriptures which are read in the church throughout the whole world are these, and those only are they who have really obtained the right of faith and have been deemed worthy, and he lists out the books of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Notice how he doesn't include the Book of Enoch here. So this could imply that Enoch was not included in the Old Testament canon. Keep in mind that at this point, the exact books that would become the Old Testament canon had not yet been officially decided on. There were several books that were being considered. Some of those books even contained questionable material, such as the Song of Solomon, which early Christians debated over because of its erotic nature. So it's possible that Enoch was in the running to be included in the Old Testament canon. But ultimately it was rejected due to its fantastical, almost mythological content. There's also the fact that the Book of Enoch was anonymous, which didn't help its case. Early Christians wanted their holy books to be written by someone well-known. Also, it's possible that because Enoch was written during the last 3 centuries before Christ, some of its material may have seemed outdated or not relevant anymore, once Christianity began to spread throughout the Mediterranean. Whatever the reasons, Enoch was not included in the official list of divine books by early church leaders. But that didn't stop people from reading it. In fact, some scholars believe that the author of the Book of Hebrews quoted from Enoch in chapter 2, verse 16, and the Book of Jubilee, another book of the Dead Sea Scrolls that wasn't included in the Old Testament canon. Despite its exclusion from the biblical canon, Enoch continued to influence other religious writings for centuries. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it, and share it with anyone you think it might help. And as always, remember to take care of yourself and go read a book.